As Star Trek's best TNG movie misses the entire point of Star Trek. For many fans, Star Trek: First Contact stands tall as the greatest next-generation movie ever made. It's thrilling, cinematic, and filled with moments that finally gave Captain Picard his big-screen gravitas. The Borg are terrifying, the stakes are massive, and the Enterprise gleams with futuristic perfection. The movie finally proved that TNG could handle the action-heavy demands of a feature film. But buried beneath its sleek visuals and edge-of-your-seat pacing, First Contact also represents something ironic. In its quest to make Star Trek cool, it abandoned much of what Star Trek was meant to be. For all its triumphs, First Contact is arguably the film where Star Trek lost its soul, trading exploration for vengeance, diplomacy for destruction, and human curiosity for cinematic spectacle. Let's dive into why Star Trek's most beloved TNG movie, for all its brilliance, misses the very point of Star Trek, the beginning of a new kind of Trek. To understand the shift, you have to look at where Star Trek came from. Gene Roddenberry's original vision, reflected in the original series and The Next Generation, was never about war. It was about the human condition, morality, and optimism. The Federation wasn't just a government. It was a statement of belief that humanity had evolved beyond its violent impulses. Captain Kirk was a man of action, yes, but also of empathy. Captain Picard, even more so, was the intellectual ideal of Starfleet. Reason over rage, discussion over domination. When Picard first faced the Borg in The Best of Both Worlds, the story wasn't about killing the enemy. It was about confronting what humanity could become if it lost its individuality and compassion. The Borg were a mirror, not a mere monster. But First Contact takes that mirror and smashes it into an action movie lens. Instead of asking what it means to be human, it asks how many Borg drones Picard can mow down with a phaser rifle. Instead of showing Starfleet as explorers and diplomats, the movie turns them into soldiers defending their turf. The shift from cerebral philosophy to pure adrenaline is palpable and irreversible. Picard becomes a man of vengeance. No one denies that Patrick Stewart gives one of his finest performances in First Contact. His emotional intensity and cold fury toward the Borg feel earned after what they did to him in The Next Generation. But the problem isn't Stewart, it's the movie's treatment of Picard as a character. John is the diplomat who once resolved conflicts with words and moral clarity. John is the captain who believed in the power of understanding. In his place stands a man obsessed with revenge. His dialogue with Lily Alfred Woodard makes this painfully clear. When she compares him to Captain Ahab, chasing the white whale to his own destruction, she's absolutely right. The tragedy is that First Contact doesn't treat that comparison as a warning. It treats it as a moment of heroic catharsis. In the end, Picard's violent breakdown isn't a moment of moral failure. It's his emotional triumph. The movie frames his decision to destroy the Borg Queen as victory rather than introspection. We're meant to cheer when he smashes the glass case and readies his rifle. But if The Next Generation taught us anything, it's that Picard's real strength was never in his rage, it was in his restraint. This movie doesn't give him that choice. It rewards his anger, and in doing so, it rewards the very emotion that Star Trek spent decades trying to warn us against. The Borg lose their meaning. The Borg were one of the most brilliant allegories ever created in science fiction. They weren't just villains, they were a philosophical statement. They represented the danger of collectivism without individuality, the nightmare of technological conformity, and the loss of self in the pursuit of perfection. In The Best of Both Worlds and I, Borg, The Next Generation used the Borg to explore questions of identity and ethics. Could something so alien learn to be human? Should we destroy what we fear or try to understand it? Those were the moral debates that defined Star Trek. First Contact simplifies all of that into a single figure, the Borg Queen. Suddenly, the Borg's chilling hive mind efficiency has a face, a seductive voice, and a villainous personality. The terrifying idea of a faceless collective becomes a cliché, a manipulative antagonist with a grudge. It's a move that makes the story easier to follow but strips the Borg of their conceptual power. The Queen was a narrative shortcut, an easy way to create a personal villain for Picard and Data to face. But it turns an idea into a monster, a metaphor into a movie trope. And that's the exact opposite of what Star Trek used to do best, turning exploration into combat. There's an unspoken expectation that a Star Trek movie has to go big. Big explosions, big ships, big stakes. First Contact delivers all of that and then some. The Borg's attack on Earth is visually stunning. The space battles are beautifully shot. The Enterprise E looks like a warship built for cinematic glory. But the problem is that Star Trek isn't Star Wars. Its strength was never in the spectacle, it was in the spirit. In the Next Generation, the crew's primary mission was to explore strange new worlds. In First Contact, that mission becomes to stop the bad guys. Even the strange new world we do see, Earth's past during First Contact Day, is treated as a backdrop for gunfights and chase scenes rather than exploration or discovery. The first human warp flight should have been a spiritual moment, the culmination of humanity's dream of reaching the stars. Instead, it's a plot device to trigger the next action sequence. Zefram Cochrane James Cromwell is portrayed less as a visionary and more as a drunken everyman who accidentally makes history. It's played for laughs, not inspiration. By the time the Vulcans arrive, that moment of first contact, the literal genesis of Star Trek's optimistic future, is rushed, almost an afterthought. The movie spends more time on Picard's vendetta than on the event that defines the entire Star Trek timeline. That's how far it strays from its own heart. The irony of success. It's important to recognize that First Contact worked. It revitalized Star Trek at the box office, won over critics, and gave fans a reason to believe that the next generation could stand shoulder to shoulder with the original crew's films. It was dark, exciting, and emotionally charged, everything the studio wanted. But that success came with a cost. First Contact proved that audiences would respond to a darker, more militarized version of Star Trek. That lesson would echo through the franchise for decades. From Deep Space Nine's wartime arcs to Discovery's grim tone and the moral ambiguity of Picard, you can trace the seeds of gritty Trek right back to First Contact. The franchise became more cinematic, yes, but also more cynical. Star Trek slowly moved away from its utopian ideals, turning instead toward introspection, trauma, and political grayness. Those are interesting directions, but they lack the optimism that once made Star Trek unique. And it all started when First Contact decided that vengeance could be heroic and war could be beautiful. What Star Trek was supposed to be, the irony is that First Contact includes within it the very message Star Trek needed. It just hides it behind the explosions. The subplot about Zefram Cochrane discovering what his flight will mean to the future could have been the emotional centerpiece. His realization that humanity's destiny is to reach beyond itself, to create peace, not conquest, is pure Roddenberry. But that message gets lost amid the Borg battles and the revenge narrative. Star Trek was never meant to glorify the fight. It was meant to transcend it. The Federation doesn't seek to destroy what it fears, it seeks to understand it. The best episodes of The Next Generation always ended with Picard finding a way to talk instead of shoot, to reason instead of retaliate. That's what made Star Trek feel different from every other science fiction series. It wasn't about the technology or the danger, it was about hope. It showed us who we could become if we chose our better nature. First Contact shows us who we are when we give in to our worst instincts. The paradox of a great movie. None of this is to say that First Contact isn't a great movie. It absolutely is. It's tightly written, beautifully acted, and visually unforgettable. It gave us the definitive look of the Borg, a chilling villain, and